I'm the Red Lady and welcome to episode 3 of my Wales and All Things Welsh series. Today I will be talking about Caerphilly Castle, the largest castle in Wales and second largest in the British Isles, second only to Windsor Castle. Caerphilly Castle was built between 1268 and the mid-1270s and is renowned as one of the most formidable castles in the British Isles. Its uncompromising strength is clearly found in a series of walls, gatehouses and towers surrounded by sizable moats, lakes totalling 30 acres. It boasts considerable inner defences and is a prime example of a walls within walls castle of concentric defences. Now, you really do have to visit Caerphilly Castle in order to appreciate its vast size and the sheer power that it exudes. Even though it's located right in the centre of the busy Caerphilly town, when standing on the banks of the moat or any of the lakes surrounding the castle, there is a deep sense of mythical majesty. Sunny, misty, rainy or snowy weather would only serve to enhance this aura of magical medieval legend. That being said, the true life history of the castle and the people connected to it plays out an intriguing mix of power struggles and rivalry amongst the nobles and royalty of the surrounding lands in medieval times. Now, most of the information I have for this video is based on information from the guidebook. Any other sources will be in the description box along with any other relevant links, and most of the videos and images used here are my own, and if not, any of the illustrators or photographers, if known, will be listed in the description box. So don't forget to like, subscribe and share. Thanks. So in this video I'm first going to talk a little bit about the building of the castle and its structure and defences. Then I would like to share some information that I have acquired about some of the men and women connected to Caerphilly Castle in years past and their stories, including the scandalous but sad story of the Green Lady who is said to haunt the castle grounds. Now, Caerphilly Castle has been in the care of the state since 1950 and is now maintained by Cadw, the Welsh Government's Historic Environment Service. Its build began in 1268 by the Marcher Lord of Glamorgan, Gilbert de Clare, in response to the rise and growing threat of Prince Llywelyn. That's Llywelyn ap Gruffydd, the Prince of Gwynedd and native Prince of Wales. As I said, this castle is a primary example of a walls within walls castle of concentric defences. And in order to get to the central island of the castle itself, you must first cross the bridge across the outer moat, which would have been a drawbridge, and get past that outer main gatehouse, and then cross another bridge that would have been another drawbridge to the inner east gatehouse. So that's 2 drawbridges to get past before you even get to the central island. The outer main gatehouse sports 3 levels of arrow loops for the defending archers. The gateway passage also has a portcullis that could be lowered in order to block the entrance and thick, heavy wooden doors. There are also slots above the doors that were used as murder holes so that the defenders could pour boiling oil, water, or drop rocks and other things onto attackers. So anyone attempting to cross the second bridge across the inner moat would have been under fire from the archers positioned on the outer gatehouse and the inner east gatehouse. Now we're at the inner east gatehouse. Now I do have images here of both the front and back of this gatehouse. Here there would be another 2 portcullises at both front and back of the gatehouse and more murder holes. Arrow loops from the guard rooms on the towers on either side. This gatehouse is rather large and would have acted as a final stronghold in the unlikely event that attackers break defences from the east side or managed to take the castle's inner ward or courtyard area. So here we have guard rooms at either side in the towers, and you can climb the extremely narrow and winding staircases, as all the staircases are in these castles, very narrow and winding spiral staircases. So in either one of those towers then to get to the first floor. Now there are quite a few rooms up here, some of which may have been sleeping quarters for soldiers or servants. And there is a narrow room over the gatehouse passage that held the winches for the 2 portcullises at the front and rear of this gatehouse. And this room would also have stored anything that they would have used to drop through those murder holes. Again, you can take either of the spiral staircases of the towers on either side up again to the second floor level. Now here you will find the largest of all the rooms in the castle, apart from the grand hall, which I will get to in due course. This large chamber sports an attractive central hooded fireplace with tall seated windows either side. Now, according to the guidebook, this room was even grander than Gilbert de Clare's own private chambers and was likely intended to host any visiting royalty. So there is also a latrine on this floor. Yes, this castle has old toilets, at least 2 that I saw anyway, possibly more. And there is a door on the other side of this large room then that it leads out onto the battlements. So there is also another level as well that takes you up to the roof, and another chamber that held the mechanism to raise or drop one of the other smaller portcullises then on the first floor level. Once through the inner east gatehouse, you will enter the inner ward area or the courtyard. This would have been the central hub of the castle, and here you will find the castle well, and it stands to reason that the well be situated in the most protected area of the castle, ensuring a good water supply for the garrison when under siege. Now, everyone in the castle would have used this area, from the Earl himself to members of the household, soldiers, servants and guests. Now, looking from the inner east gatehouse on the left, you will find the Great Hall with those large windows. And just past that are the ruins of what would have been a buttery and a pantry, with the Earl's private quarters and chapel on the upper floor. The Great Hall stands at 75 foot long, 36 foot wide and 34 foot high. It was one of the largest non-royal Great Halls ever built in England or Wales. And there are so many interesting features to this hall, and a number of changes that were made to it over the years, along with new kitchens and new chambers for the guests built along the outer side. The floor was raised at some point, and new private chambers added for Gilbert de Clare that I couldn't possibly include all the details in this video, but you can only imagine the great hall being used in all its glory, with Earl Gilbert de Clare, his family and his distinguished guests sitting at the tables laid out with fine linen, meat hunted from the huge hunting park that was created nearby in St Genedd, as lords do love to hunt, and fine gold and silver drinking vessels for the wine and the beer, the minstrels plucking a pleasant tune, and a great roaring fire in the hearth. So as well as kitchens for food preparation, there would have been a brew house and a bakehouse, and a castle of this size would have needed a considerable amount of supplies, as Gilbert de Clare travelled with a household of up to 200 people, and if he was entertaining guests, then this number would be considerably larger. But when he was not in the castle, then only the resident domestic staff and the soldiers of the garrison would have needed to be fed. On the upper right-hand side of the courtyard is the north curtain wall, where you can take a walk across the battlements from the inner east gatehouse, and here is a reconstruction of a wooden fighting gallery known as a hoard, and these would have been used on many parts of the castle, and these hoards would allow the crossbowmen to fire on attackers at the base of the castle and provide them with ample protection as they did so. The view out from the top of this north wall is absolutely stunning. It overlooks the North Lake, the countryside and the North Dam. On the other side it overlooks the courtyard, and on the far side of the north curtain wall is the northwest tower. There it is. And in this tower, it was protected by a large wooden door and another murder hole. And in this tower, you will find chambers with fireplaces, glazed windows and latrines. And these rooms would have been for knights or men of rank, and they would have been fully furnished bedchambers. Now, the west gatehouse at the back of the castle, not as elaborate as the inner east gatehouse, but still contains a number of rooms, including guard rooms, entrance lobbies, stairways, a large hall and roof battlements with plenty of arrow loops. And I also got a picture of the outer side of this entrance, or the far side entrance of the castle that would have led up to this gatehouse from the other side. This has to be my favourite tower, the southeast tower, or the leaning tower. Now, the leaning tower is a prominent feature of Caerphilly Castle. The tower's lean reaches at 10 degrees to the vertical, which is even further than that of the Leaning Tower of Pisa. Now, there is some debate as to why the tower leans as it does. Some say it's due to subsidence and others say it's due to battle damage. This leaning tower does make Caerphilly Castle stand out amongst all other castles, and it really does look as if it could fall at any minute. There is a statue of the Marquis of Bute, responsible for much of the restoration of the castle, holding the tower up. You can just make him out there at the base of the tower. I have also took some photos of the views from the South Lake and the South Gatehouse, which is just off the main road of the town centre. The walk around the castle grounds is beautiful and pleasant. There are ducks, geese, swans and all kinds of other birds and wildlife. There are plenty of grass bankings and trees and benches to sit on. And there is so much more to see than what I have time to describe. There is a dam, there are replica siege engines to check out, and there are even a few dragons around. The gift shop is well stocked, and there are picnic benches in the courtyard if you feel inclined to bring a bite to eat for lunch. Now, I think I've covered most of the more interesting features of Caerphilly Castle. Now, on to some of the stories of the people who were intimately connected to Caerphilly Castle. Let's dish the dirt on the medieval royalty and nobles and the story of the Green Lady who was said to haunt the castle grounds. Now, I'll start with Gilbert de Clare, who I've already mentioned was the builder of the castle, and he was the Marcher Lord of Glamorgan and the Earl of Gloucester and Hertford. Now, he came from an extremely rich and powerful family, the de Clares, and he was heir to the greatest baronial inheritance in England, and his power was unrivalled amongst the Marcher lords of his time, and he was known as Red Gilbert, or the Red Earl, not only because of his red hair, but also because of his fiery temper. Now, Gilbert de Clare built Caerphilly Castle in response to the uprising of Prince Llywelyn ap Gruffydd, whose military prowess eventually forced the English crown to acknowledge him as the first native Prince of Wales. Now, the rivalry between Earl Gilbert and Prince Llywelyn is really what shaped Caerphilly Castle into a mighty fortress of gigantic proportions. The young Red Gilbert was eager to make his mark upon the Welsh territories, but the threat of Prince Llywelyn's forces proved to be the thorn in his side, as Prince Llywelyn was running a seemingly successful campaign to reclaim Welsh lands for the Welsh people, and he was getting rather close to the de Clare lands. So Red Gilbert's response to this threat in an attempt to deter the advancement of Prince Llywelyn was to build a castle of unmatched size and defences in Wales. Now, money was no issue for Gilbert as his coffers were overflowing with his vast family fortune, and Caerphilly Castle, despite its enormous size, was built in an impressively short time. However, Prince Llywelyn did attack the castle and burned some of the foundations, but Gilbert, being an aggressive and ambitious man, continued on and did complete the castle. And by the time it was completed, the threat of Prince Llywelyn had more or less passed. Now, on to the story of the Green Lady. Gilbert de Clare was married to French Princess Alice of Angoulême, who was the niece of Henry II, King of England. And apparently Alice was a woman of passionate disposition, and she came to resent her husband's warring disposition. And it is said that Alice began an affair with one of the local Welsh princes, Gruffydd the Fair, Prince of Brythda, who was very handsome and well spoken. And Gruffydd unfortunately confessed his affair with Alice to a monk who betrayed his secret to Gilbert de Clare. The Red Earl promptly sent his wife back to France and ordered his men to hunt down Gruffydd, the Prince of Brythda. But Gruffydd, who had been informed of the Earl's search, became consumed with revenge against the monk who had betrayed him, and he sought out the monk and hung him from a tree. Now, not long after, the Earl's men caught up with Gruffydd, and he also ended up hanging from a tree. Now, when a messenger was sent to France to inform Princess Alice of her lover's demise, she dropped dead on the spot. And even though she died in France, it is said that her ghostly figure wanders the ramparts of Caerphilly Castle, dressed in green as symbolic of her husband's jealousy, and many people may have seen her figure walking around. Now, Gilbert de Clare's second wife was Joan of Acre, King Edward I's daughter, who was so named as she was born in Acre, Israel, whilst her father, King Edward, was on crusade at the time. Now, she was much younger than Gilbert. Nonetheless, they had 4 children together within the space of 5 years. Gilbert then died. Now, Joan's father, the king, had planned another marriage for Joan, but she secretly married someone else. An unsuitable commoner, a knight named Ralph de Monthermer, and King Edward was furious, but he did eventually give in to his daughter, and he even grew to like Ralph and allowed him to use his titles, including the title Lord of Glamorgan. Now, on to Gilbert de Clare's children. Gilbert de Clare had 1 son and 3 daughters, and when Gilbert's son, who was also named Gilbert, died fighting the army of Robert the Bruce in the Battle of Bannockburn in Scotland, his inheritance was to be divided between the 3 sisters. Now, Eleanor de Clare, who was born in Caerphilly Castle, was the eldest of the daughters, and she was married to the much despised and cruel Hugh Despenser. Eleanor de Clare was in charge inside Caerphilly Castle while it was under siege, with a Welsh uprising led by Llywelyn Bren. Now, being the resourceful sort, she managed to hold out for 6 weeks or so until help arrived, and during her rather dangerous marriage to Hugh Despenser, she even managed to survive being imprisoned in the Tower of London twice. The second imprisonment was due to an accusation of stealing crown jewels or jewels of some sort from the tower itself. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and please do subscribe. Hit the bell for notifications and don't forget to check out the links in the description box below and any other relevant information there. Thanks for listening.